Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm RICARDO ORTIZ, and as chair of our Department of English, it's my honor to open today's gathering with these brief remarks. We're here today to celebrate the graduation of this year's 22 master's students, 64 majors, 12 minors, all in English, and our 4 students minoring in creative writing. Students, you've experienced one of the most extraordinary and extraordinarily challenging periods in our history and in the history of higher education that any generation of students has experienced in a very long time. We, on the faculty and staff of Georgetown's Department of English, stand in admiration and in awe of your persistence, your patience, your accomplishments, and your overall courage and grace, and the overall courage and grace with which we've seen you proceed over these past 4 years. You've inspired and amazed us over and over again over this difficult time. Especially for those of us working in the creative arts and critical humanities, especially in the spaces of literary, cultural, media, and writing studies where most of us do our work, this period has also opened important new opportunities for us to renew our conviction about the value that work like ours might be uniquely designed to offer the world, even as we radically reimagine the nature of that work and its possible engagements with our wider world. I want to pause here to thank in particular our institutional partners, the Lannan Center for Poetics and Social Practice, the University Writing Program and Writing Center, the Program in Creative Writing, the Center for New Designs in Learning and Scholarship, and the Community Scholars Program for all of the ways they enrich the work that we do in the larger English ecosystem at Georgetown, as well as to thank, as always, our remarkable faculty, including, I see Professor Lena Orland, who's with us, who's retiring this year. So we'll count her as among one of our celebrated graduates. Sorry to do that to you, Lena, without warning, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity. It's great to see you here. Our remarkable faculty and our equally remarkable department staff for all of their efforts in support of our common work over the past year. I now invite Professors KATHRYN Temple and Daniel Shore to say a few words before introducing our student speakers. Professor Temple is our outgoing Director of Graduate Studies and of our Honors Program, as well as incoming department chair. Professor Shore is our outgoing Director of Undergraduate Studies and incoming Director of Graduate Studies, and they're both highly published and well-respected scholars in their fields and beyond as well. So let me put that in there for good measure. After the remarks and the brief reflections from the student speakers that we spotlight today, I'll invite Jessica Marr and Devin Shanahan from our department administrative staff to toast all of our graduating students of the class of 2021. Oya Saxa.
Dan, would you like to start?
Sure. I really wish I could be present with all of you. I'd like to give handshakes and maybe a few hugs. But I am pleased that we have this occasion, such as it is, to share with you my admiration for you. The last year has been annus horribilis, a terrible year, and it's brought with it really the heaviest burdens that we can imagine. Social isolation, the failure of our familiar sources of comfort and most basic systems of support, plague and sickness and far too much death, political unrest and social distrust, and unequally distributed suffering of kinds new and old. And over the last year, both as a teacher in the classroom or in the virtual classroom and as the director of undergraduate studies, I've only glimpsed the burdens that have weighed on so many of you. But those of you graduating in the coming days have done a truly remarkable thing. You have shown virtues that should not have been required of you, virtues like fortitude and courage and perseverance and steadfastness. And amidst everything, you have continued to learn, continued to read, continued to write, continued to study, and you've continued to cultivate the sometimes stern discipline of thinking. And those are not easy tasks in the best of times. That you've done them in the worst of times warrants the appreciation of your professors, the admiration of your peers. And I really hope that it has made each of you proud, or at least given you permission to forgive yourselves for what you've been unable to do given the constraints. And I want to congratulate all of you and wish you Godspeed. And I so much look forward to seeing the heights to which you will rise as restrictions fall away and burdens are lifted.
Thank you for that, Dan. So I'm just going to say maybe a few words about the honors students who are here today. It's a coincidence that we have 3 of our honors students who volunteered for this, but maybe not so much of a coincidence. These are amazing students, and I feel so honored to be able to introduce them, partly because I know them well because we worked together since before the pandemic almost. So when they started working on their thesis proposals, there was no pandemic. We then went through a summer of work, a fall of work, a spring semester of work, and we're like the cicadas, we're now emerging, hopefully, into quite a different world in the next few months. So I was very, very pleased to see that they had volunteered. I'm going to introduce each of them with a few of their accomplishments and then say a few words after that. So Bella is a senior in the college, double majoring in English and government with a minor in theology. While at Georgetown, she was highly involved in political organizing as well as in Georgetown's equestrian team. In addition to her English thesis, Bella also prepared a government honors thesis on tropes of motherhood in American electoral politics, two totally different projects. Same person, really hard to imagine the level of work that she was doing over the past few months. Next year, she will be attending Stanford Law School. Her thesis with the department was A Cameo for the Aesthetic Heart, Tilly Olson, and the Cultivation of a Proletarian Modernism in Yonandia. Glenn Waters. Glenn is a senior in the college, double majoring in English and African American Studies. And while at Georgetown, he crafted his poetry skills by performing at art shairs, taking creative writing courses, and being a Lannan Seminar Fellow. He spent his years creating connections between literature and African American history by studying influential writers and their influences and legacies in conversation with the contemporary. Next year, Glenn will pursue his MFA in creative writing at the University of Iowa's Writers Workshop, the recipient of a very prestigious fellowship there. And also just recently, the recipient of the Amelia Ferrara Award for Best Creative Thesis. So we applaud Glenn for that. Abby Lovell, Abigail, who I call Abby, double majored in English and Justice and Peace Studies, a combination which has solidified her belief in the power of narratives to enact social change. She's had the pleasure of working extensively in the Georgetown Writing Center, where she enjoys building students' confidence in their authorial voice, and she has partnered with Georgetown's Pivot program to bolster returning citizens' business writing and communication skills. And I can say from watching her at work that she was truly amazing at doing that with a very challenged population. After graduation, Abby will attend Georgetown Law, where she hopes to pursue juvenile criminal defense law. Her thesis was A Universe of Cells, A World of Hospitals, Reading Confinement Beyond Institutional Walls. Okay, so one thing I'd wanted to do with this was to then come up with a creative and hopefully funny sort of most likely to type of description for each of the students. But I found I just couldn't do it because I felt like they are all most likely to come through in a crisis. All 3 of them. They are all most likely to help others. And they are all most likely to dazzle us with their brilliance in the future. So with that, I'll close the introductions and allow them to speak.
Thank you, Professor Temple. I'm so touched by all of those lovely things you said. When I started at Georgetown, I had no idea I would become an English major. In fact, I didn't even have any intention of becoming an English minor, which in retrospect strikes me as a little bit strange because English was always my favorite class growing up. The only reason I ever even took an English class at Georgetown was that I didn't get a full schedule my first term back in the good old days of pre-registration. The dean's office handed me a list of classes with remaining seats, and only 2 fit my schedule, intermediate Russian, and modernist literatures. And since I speak no Russian, modernist literatures it was. I remember thinking that at least it fulfilled my HALC requirement. It took all of 2 classes for that modernist literatures course to become my favorite. I had always loved to read, but before taking college level English, fiction was something that existed in a vacuum, estranged from the rest of our dynamic world. But Professor Rizzuto disabused me of that notion very quickly. Not only was every piece a self-contained code of rhetoric to decipher, but the texts we examined were all relics of the political, social, and economic circumstances of their production. Books that seemed at face value to be about the lives of a few characters were actually mediations on peace and war, imperialism, race, gender, class, and the whiplash that comes with a rapidly changing world. My passion for politics was at last connected with my love for art. When the semester ended, I was practically grief-stricken to have lost my 150 minutes per week in that favorite class. Fortunately, the rest of the Georgetown English department found countless ways to fill the void every semester. From Shakespeare to queer cinema, from creative writing to class fictions, from the literature of the Great Depression to reading motherhood, every class and every professor has nurtured my love for language, all while helping me connect it to the larger phenomena that drive our world. The close reading and writing skills I acquired are undoubtedly useful, but it is the belief that our words are intertwined with our material lives and can be harnessed in pursuit of justice that most strongly resonates as I prepare to enter law school this fall. Thank you to Professor Rizzuto, Professor Orlin, Professor McMorris, Professor Perlow, Professor Hockman, Professor Kaplan, Professor Benson Allett, and Professor Temple for giving me an intellectual home at Georgetown and helping me grow in all of these ways. And a special thank you to Professor Fox and Professor Velez for teaching the course that planted the seed for both of my honors theses and for serving as my mentors. I am so lucky to have found you all. I'd like to conclude with a brief memory. When I was in high school, I went to see Avenue Q, the off-color puppet musical, with my father in New York City. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I had double pneumonia and 102-degree fever, so I honestly don't remember much of it. But the one song I do remember asked the question, what do you do with a BA in English? I'm pretty sure the musical responds with lamentations of unemployment and feeling lost, which, let's be honest, are definitely risks of this path. But after meeting all of the incredible, brilliant English students here at Georgetown, I think the real answer to the question is think, grow, and make a difference in countless pockets of this enormous world. Congrats to my fellow seniors. It's been the journey of a lifetime with you guys.
Thank you for that, Bella. I believe Glenn is next.
Thank you for your words, Bella. And again, thank you, Professor Temple, for your introduction. First off, I want to start with thank yous. I want to thank the English department and this wonderful faculty for playing an integral role in my development as a writer and scholar. I want to give a special thanks to Professor Hensley, Professor Ripken, Professor Forche, Professor Temple, my thesis advisor, Professor McMorris, thesis director, Professor Temple, and my English advisor, Professor Mitchell. Similar to Bella, I came into Georgetown on a different route, studying biology in hopes of doing something environmental. But long story short, it wasn't working out for me. Going into my sophomore year, I was looking for something different that would capture my attention. And so when I took methods with Professor Hensley, it altered my academic journey at Georgetown for the better. I grew up writing poetry and I understood the power of words, but I never imagined contributing to that power until I started taking English classes. I remember calling my mother, I'm gonna embarrass her a little bit since she's on here. I remember calling my mother and telling her I want to be an English major. And to sum up her words, she was like, well, what are you gonna do with that? And a couple of semesters later, I found myself actively writing poetry and having conversations with renowned writers and in the Lamon seminar. I managed to learn to expand my capabilities in creative writing by workshopping my poems for the first time ever. These experiences gave me enough confidence to submit an honors thesis proposal that was birthed from remarkable readings in my methods class and the conversations with various professors during office hours. And rounding off my senior year, I was able to complete my honors thesis alongside my remarkable classmates and become the recipient of the Amelia Ferrara Award for Outstanding Creative Honors Thesis. And in that journey, the English department helped me turn a hobby into a craft and my talent into a skill. I would carry that skill with me to Iowa. A common thread throughout these experiences with the English department is a willingness to show support in a multitude of ways. Any Georgetown student that's participated in the English class here has been graced by the commitment to literary scholarship, student development, and dialogues between faculty and student that make the university setting thrive. I'm forever thankful for being able to experience this firsthand. And I know my classmates can agree with me that the English department has served us so very well. So again, thank you. And to the graduation class of 2021, congratulations and Horace Saxon.
I have no idea how to follow Bella and Glenn. I've been rewriting what I had to say as we go here. Apparently the smear campaign against the English major has been successful. So few of us came to Georgetown hoping to major in English. Bella didn't, Glenn didn't, and I surely didn't either. I had no interest in English my freshman year. I, like too many other people, thought that English was second only to practical uselessness as philosophy, and I'm glad to say that I was wrong on both counts. Instead, I found English to be a discipline which would stretch my mind, challenge my opinions, and solidify my then amorphous interest in justice to something more concrete, something tied to narrative and ensuring that voices could be heard. Professor Temple began me on this path, and I'm so grateful for that. From my first English class, her section of writing 015 titled The Poetics of Justice, to my senior thesis seminar, she challenged me to realize and articulate the enduring relevance of literature in challenging the status quo and advocating for the author's vision of what's right. I also want to thank Professor Lipscomb, my boss as the director of the Writing Center, Professor Corrigan and Professor Williams, who not only demonstrated how powerful effective writing can be, but also went above and beyond to improve my own writing and the writing of my peers. They've shown me that far from an outdated, stuffy skill, writing can both teach you what you actually think about something and convince someone else that you're worth listening to. Finally, for professor thanks, I'd like to thank Professor Rizzuto and Professor Marish, who in their own ways taught me to read more closely and recognize just how much is going on between the lines of any given story. The depth, emotion, and skill that goes into storytelling makes it not only an art form, but a political and historical medium, as Bella so eloquently stated. All in all, these professors, the entire English department, and my classmates in every single class pushing me to understand things a little bit better, think from a little bit different angle, work in a field that continues to open and expand our ideas of what it means to experience life and imagine how it could be different. Thank you all for teaching me that stories are among the most powerful tools that we have in this world, and thank you for showing me how to use them well and use them for good. As I move into law school next year and eventually a career in juvenile justice, I will carry forward everything that English has taught me. I hope to work for effective reform centering upon the stories of youths I serve, and pray that everything you've taught me about working and writing as communication can help me along the way. Thank you all so much. Congratulations, class of 2021. I know you're going to do great things.
With that, I will turn it back over to Devin.
Yeah, I think it's me and Jessica at the moment, which we're gonna basically lead everybody in a toast / cheer. Because I mean, as we've all stated, this was a bit of a crazy situation and year, and everyone has pulled through pretty spectacularly. So I'm down for a nice little final cheer and raise my Georgetown mug. And we'll go from there, I suppose. So, I don't know, Jessica, you want to hip hip hooray or anything?
Sure, I'll just add a remark or two. I feel totally inadequate and unprepared to say anything. Everyone was so eloquent, so I'll just keep it short by saying congratulations. We're so proud of you and look forward to what you will do in the coming years. Hoya Saxa.
All right. Hi,
Oya
sex,
Saxa.
everybody. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Saxa.
Yay.